Sound of cardiac monitors suddenly accelerating. "Leo, Leo, look at me, son. Doctors, someone come quick." "It can't be, not now." Leonardo's heart beat so hard it felt like it wanted to burst from his chest. The fluorescent lights of the hospital flickered like lightning as the sharp sound of medical alarms pierced his ears. His hands, accustomed to signing multi-million-dollar contracts, now trembled uncontrollably on the cold railings of the bed where his son fought for his life. On the 14th floor of St. Jude's Hospital in Los Angeles, John Hamilton slumped against the cold hallway wall. His blue eyes, normally full of corporate determination, were now red and swollen. At 42 years old, he had built a real estate empire from the ground up, but nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for this battle. His son, Leo, barely 2 years old, lay in the intensive care unit with a disease the doctors called idiopathic. An elegant word to say they had no idea what was killing his little boy. "Mr. Hamilton," Dr. Herrera's voice sounded tired. "We've tried everything. The specialists from Houston cancelled their trip. There are no more protocols to follow." John clenched his fists. His Armani suit was wrinkled after 3 days of sleeping in hospital chairs. His black hair, always perfectly styled, was disheveled. He looked like a defeated man. "What do you mean, no more?" His voice cracked. "I have money, I have contacts, I have everything it takes. How can there be no more?" The doctor lowered his gaze. He had seen many cases like this, powerful parents who believed money could buy miracles, but medicine had its limits. "I am so sorry. You can take him home to be comfortable. It's the most humane thing." "No!" John slammed his fist against the wall. "I'm not going to give up. He's my son." The doctor walked away slowly, leaving John alone with his grief. The millionaire slid down the wall until he was sitting on the cold floor, his head in his hands. For the first time in his life, his money was useless, his power meant nothing, his son was dying, and he could do nothing to save him. Tears fell uncontrollably onto the white marble. This was the same man who had faced financial crises, who had lost his wife in an accident 2 years earlier, who had raised Leo practically alone with the help of nannies and housekeepers. But this was different. This was the end of everything. "Excuse me, sir?" A soft voice made him look up. It was a young woman, about 30 years old, wearing the blue uniform of the hospital cleaning staff. She had the greenest eyes he had ever seen, like emeralds against her fair, freckled skin. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and although her clothes were humble, there was something about her presence that radiated peace. "I know it's not my place to speak," the woman continued nervously, "but I've been watching your son. I've seen many cases like this in my hometown." John looked at her with a mixture of desperation and skepticism. "Are you a doctor?" "No, sir, I'm Maria Alvarez. I work in cleaning, but—" She hesitated for a moment. "If you'd allow me to try something, maybe I can help." John's bitter laugh echoed in the empty hallway. "A cleaning lady is going to cure my son when the best doctors in the country can't?" Maria wasn't offended. She had lived through enough humiliations for the words of a desperate man to hurt her. Instead, she moved a little closer. "I grew up in a small town in rural Mexico. My grandmother was a midwife and a healer. She taught me things that doctors don't learn in universities. I know it sounds crazy, but—" "Everything sounds crazy right now," John interrupted, staring at her intently. "The doctors say there's no hope. The specialists cancelled. My son is dying, and I can't do anything." They stood in silence for a moment. Maria saw the genuine pain in the eyes of this powerful man, and John saw something different in this humble woman. It wasn't pity that shone in her green eyes, but understanding. "What would you lose by trying?" Maria asked softly. "I only ask that you let me be with him for an hour. I'm not going to give him anything strange or do any weird rituals. Just observe." John closed his eyes. He had spent approximately $27,000 on treatments, had moved heaven and earth to bring in specialists, had begged, had yelled, had cried. And now a cleaning lady was offering him the last thing he had left, hope. 1 hour, he said finally. But if you hurt him, I won't hurt him, Maria interrupted with a small but sincere smile. I promise you. Have you ever trusted someone everyone said was beneath you? Has a common person ever given you the hope that the experts couldn't? Tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. Like this video if you want to know what happened next, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Maria Alvarez had cleaned the floors of St. Jude's Hospital for 3 years. Every day, from 5 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, she mopped the hallways, cleaned the windows, emptied the trash cans. She was invisible to most people, doctors, nurses, patients, families. They all passed by her without really seeing her, but Maria saw them all, especially the sick children. There was something about the way she observed that went beyond simple curiosity. When she walked through the pediatric wards, her green eyes fixed on details that others didn't notice: the color of the skin, the way of breathing, the small gestures the body made when fighting illness. It all started when she was 8 years old, in a small town in rural Mexico. Her grandmother, Doña Esperanza, was the only person the women of the town turned to when they were about to give birth. But Doña Esperanza wasn't just a midwife. She had a special gift for reading the human body as if it were an open book. Maria, she would say, while teaching her to prepare. Herbal teas, the body always speaks. You just have to know how to listen. Maria grew up learning the secrets of plants, the healing properties of each herb, the exact points to press to relieve pain. But most of all, she learned to observe, to read the signs that the body sent when something was wrong. When she was 17, her grandmother died, and with her went the last ties Maria had to her town. Her parents had died in an accident when she was little, and she had no other family. She decided to move to Los Angeles in search of work, carrying only a small suitcase and the knowledge her grandmother had passed down to her. The first few years were hard. She worked in family homes, in factories, wherever she could, until she got the job at the hospital. At first, she just wanted a stable salary and a place to live peacefully. But little by little, she began to notice things. She saw the sick children and recognized patterns that the doctors didn't perceive. She noticed when a child was going to get better before the tests confirmed it. She sensed when a crisis was about to happen, but she never dared to say anything. Who would listen to a cleaning lady? Until today. As she followed John toward the room where Leo was hospitalized, Maria felt that familiar sensation in her stomach. It was as if her body was tuning in to the sick child's, as if she could feel what he was feeling. The room was a spectacle of medical technology, beeping machines, tubes going in and out of the small body, monitors showing lines and numbers incomprehensible to most people. Leo Hamilton lay in the center of it all, pale, small, struggling. "My son," John murmured, approaching the bed. "My little warrior." Maria stood in the doorway for a moment, observing. Not the machines, not the numbers on the monitors, but the child, his small hands, the way he breathed, the color of his lips, the position of his body on the bed. "Can I get closer?" she asked softly. John nodded, although he remained alert. This woman might be his last hope, but she was still a stranger he had just met. Maria slowly approached the bed. Leo had blonde, curly hair, just like his father must have had as a child. His eyelashes were long and dark, and although his eyes were closed, Maria could see they would be blue like John's. "Can I touch him?" she asked. "The doctors say it's not contagious," John replied, confused. Maria smiled slightly. It wasn't because of contagion that she asked, but out of respect. She placed her hands on Leo's small hands, closing her eyes. What she felt made her shudder. The child wasn't dying from a physical illness. His body was responding to something deeper, something emotional. Maria had seen this before in her town. When young children suffered traumas they couldn't process. The body, not knowing how to deal with emotional pain, simply shut down. "Mr. Hamilton," Maria said without opening her eyes, "how did your wife die?" John tensed up immediately. "What does that have to do with—" "Please." Maria opened her eyes and looked at him directly. "It's important." John hesitated. 2 years had passed since the accident, but the pain was still fresh. "It was a car accident. She was coming back from picking up Leo from daycare. I was in an important meeting. She had asked me to pick him up, but I told her I couldn't. If I had—" "Was Leo in the car?" "Yes. He survived without a scratch, but Mary died in the hospital 2 days later. Leo hadn't spoken since then. The psychologists say it's normal, that he'll overcome the trauma, but—" Maria nodded slowly. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. "Has Leo been sick since the accident?" "No. It started 3 months ago. First it was constant colds, then infections, now this. The doctors say it's an autoimmune disease, but they don't know why." "His body is tired of fighting," Maria said softly. "Not against a disease, but against sadness. Children don't know how to process loss the way adults do, so the body takes over and simply gives up." John looked at her skeptically. "Are you telling me my son is sick because he's sad?" "I'm telling you that your son is sick because he feels like he lost his mom, and now he's going to lose his dad too." The impact of those words hit John like a punch. Without realizing it, he had distanced himself from Leo after the accident. The pain of losing Mary, the guilt of not having been there, the responsibility of raising a traumatized child. It had all led him to take refuge in work, to be a father present physically, but absent emotionally. "How?" His voice cracked. "How can you know that?" "Because I've seen this before, and because—" Maria hesitated. "Because I was also a child who lost her parents and felt abandoned." They were silent for a moment. Maria kept her hands on Leo's, and John watched as the boy's face seemed to relax slightly. "What can I do?" John finally asked. "Talk to him every day. Tell him things about his mother. Promise him that you will never leave him. And—" Maria looked him in the eyes. "Let me come visit him." "Visit him?" "There are things I can do. Special massages, herbal teas, breathing techniques, things my grandmother taught me. But the most important thing is that someone is with him who understands what he's going through." John looked at his son, then at this strange woman he had just met, who seemed to understand Leo better than all the specialist doctors he had consulted. "Why would you do this?" he asked. "What do you gain?" Maria smiled for the first time since they had met. It was a sad but genuine smile. "Mr. Hamilton, when I was Leo's age, I was also about to die. Not from an illness, but from sadness. My grandmother saved me because she understood that sometimes medicine isn't enough. Sometimes you just need someone to really see you and tell you that you're going to be okay. And you believe you can see Leo? Really see him? I think I'm already seeing him, and he's seeing me." As if he had heard the conversation, Leo slightly moved his fingers. His eyes slowly opened, and for the first time in days, he seemed to focus his gaze. He looked Maria directly in the eyes, and he smiled. John held his breath. It had been months since he had seen his son smile. "Hello, little warrior," Maria murmured softly. "I'm Maria. I came to take care of you." Leo didn't speak, but his small fingers closed around Maria's hand. For the first time in weeks, John felt something he had forgotten existed: hope. 2 weeks after meeting Maria, Leo's room had transformed. Where before there were only cold machines and the constant beeping of monitors, now there were small details that made the place more human. Colourful drawings on the walls, a hand-knitted blanket that Maria had brought from her home, and a small diffuser that filled the air with the soft scent of chamomile. Maria arrived every day after finishing her cleaning shift. At first, the nurses looked at her with suspicion. What was a cleaning lady doing in the room of one of the hospital's most important patients? But when they saw the child beginning to show signs of improvement, the criticism turned into curiosity. "It's incredible," commented Nurse Rocio, while checking Leo's vital signs. "His oxygen levels have improved considerably. Dr. Herrera says it's the first time in months the results have been consistently positive." John, who had practically moved into the hospital, watched everything with a mixture of astonishment and gratitude. Maria didn't do anything extraordinary, at least not to the naked eye. She simply sat next to Leo, told him stories in a low voice, gently massaged his hands and feet, and prepared herbal teas that the boy drank without protest. But there was something else, something John couldn't explain. "How do you do it?" he asked her one afternoon while watching Maria hum a lullaby that had made Leo smile. Maria looked up, her green eyes shining with warmth. "Do what?" "Connect with him like that. The doctors, the nurses, even me. We all try to help him, but with you it's different. It's like you knew each other before." Maria stopped humming and remained thoughtful for a moment. "Can I tell you something, Mr. Hamilton?" "John, after everything you've done for Leo, I think you can call me John." "John," Maria repeated, as if trying out the name. "When I was little, after my parents died, I was also sick, not physically but emotionally. I stopped eating, playing, talking. My grandmother said my soul was so sad that my body had decided to join it in its pain." John moved closer, intrigued. "What happened?" "One day my grandmother took me to care for a woman who was giving birth. It was a difficult labor, and the woman was very scared. My grandmother asked me to hold her hand. I didn't understand why, but I did. And suddenly I felt something I hadn't felt since my parents died." "What did you feel?" "Usefulness. Purpose. I realized that my pain could serve a good purpose. That my experience of loss allowed me to understand the fear and sadness of other people in a way that someone who had never suffered couldn't." John nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "That's why Leo connects with you, because you understand his pain." "Exactly. He feels like he's not alone, that there's someone who understands what it's like to lose someone you love and not know how to keep living." They were silent for a few moments, watching Leo sleep peacefully. His breathing was more regular, his color had improved, and for the first time in months he didn't seem to be fighting something invisible. "Maria," John said softly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Have you never wanted to have a family of your own? Children?" Maria smiled sadly. "I've wanted many things in my life, John, but sometimes, when you come from where I come from, dreams feel very far away. I work from sun up to sundown. I live in a small room, and most people see me as, well, as a cleaning lady. I don't see you that way." The words escaped John's lips before he could stop them. Maria looked at him, surprised. "How do you see me?" John was quiet for a moment, not really knowing how to answer. The truth was that in the last 2 weeks he had begun to see Maria in a way that confused him. At first, it had been just gratitude for what she was doing for Leo. But now he found himself waiting for her to arrive every day. He had grown accustomed to her stories, her soft laughter, the way her eyes lit up when Leo showed any progress. He had begun to notice small details, how she tucked her hair back when she was concentrated, how she bit her lower lip when she was thinking, how her hands seemed to heal just by touching. "I see you as the woman who is saving my son," he said finally. But they both knew there was something more to that answer. Something neither of them was ready to admit. "Daddy!" Leo's weak but clear voice made them turn immediately to the bed. The boy had his eyes open and was looking directly at John. "Leo!" John approached quickly, his heart pounding. "How are you feeling, champ?" "Daddy," Leo repeated, and this time his voice sounded stronger. "I'm hungry." John burst into tears. These were the first words Leo had spoken in over 2 years. Maria approached and placed a soft hand on John's shoulder. "That's great progress," she murmured. "He's coming back to us." "Maria?" Leo had turned to her. "Can you tell me another story?" Maria sat down in the chair next to the bed, her eyes wet with emotion. "Of course, little warrior. What story do you want to hear?" "The one about the boy who found his mommy." Maria looked at John, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Once upon a time, there was a very brave little boy who lived in a very beautiful place with his mommy and his daddy. One day his mommy had to go on a very long trip, so long that she couldn't come back." Maria paused, her voice thick with emotion. "The little boy was very sad because he thought his mommy had left him, because he had done something bad." John sat in the other chair, listening intently. "But it wasn't true?" Leo asked. "No, little one. His mommy loved him more than anything in the world. But sometimes mommies have to take trips they didn't plan. The little boy's mommy didn't want to leave. But sometimes life makes decisions for us." "And what did the little boy do?" "The little boy was very sad for a long time, so sad that he got sick. But then someone came who explained something very important to him." "What did they explain?" "That his mommy hadn't really gone away, that she was here." Maria placed her hand over Leo's heart. "And here." She placed her hand over John's heart. "And that every time they loved each other, his mommy would be present." Leo remained thoughtful for a moment. "Is my mommy here?" "Yes, little warrior. She's here." Leo extended his small arms toward John, who hugged him gently, careful not to disconnect any monitors. "I love you, Daddy," Leo murmured against John's chest. "And I love you, son, more than my own life." Maria watched them embrace, feeling a mixture of joy and melancholy. Joy at seeing this family healing, melancholy for something she couldn't completely define. At that moment, Dr. Herrera entered the room accompanied by 2 nurses. "Mr. Hamilton, we have the results of today's tests and—" He stopped when he saw Leo awake and talking. "He's conversing." "Yes, doctor. He started talking an hour ago." Dr. Herrera approached the bed with an expression of astonishment. "This is extraordinary." "Hello, Leo. I'm Dr. Herrera. How are you feeling?" "Good," Leo replied with a small smile. "Maria told me a nice story." The doctor looked at Maria, who had stood up and seemed uncomfortable with the attention. "You are the lady who has been visiting the boy?" "Yes, doctor. I'm Maria Alvarez." Dr. Herrera observed her for a moment. He had heard comments from the nurses about the cleaning lady who spent time with the millionaire's son, but he had been so busy with other cases that he hadn't paid much attention. "Well, whatever it is you're doing, it's working. Today's results show the most significant improvement we've seen in months." "Does that mean Leo is going to be okay?" John asked. "It means we're on the right track. If this progress continues, we might be talking about discharging him in a few weeks." John felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He looked at Maria, who was smiling with bright eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you for saving my son." "He saved himself," Maria replied. "I just reminded him that it was worth living." Have you ever witnessed a miracle happen before your eyes? Do you believe that love can heal what medicine cannot? Tell us in the comments what city you're watching from and share if you've ever met someone with a special gift like Maria. 3 weeks after Leo's first progress, John's life had completely changed. For the first time in years, he could sleep without nightmares. His son was getting better every day, and soon they would be able to go home. But there was something else that troubled him, something he didn't know how to handle. Maria Alvarez had entered his life like a silent hurricane, transforming everything in her path. And now, John couldn't stop thinking about her. It was a Thursday afternoon when he decided to do something he had never done before. He followed Maria when she finished her shift. He saw her walking through the streets of downtown Los Angeles, her worn backpack over her shoulder and her step light. She wore a simple blue cotton dress that enhanced her green eyes, and her brown hair shone under the afternoon sun. John followed her at a distance, feeling like a teenager playing a prank. Maria stopped at Grand Central Market, where she bought fresh vegetables and aromatic herbs. She spoke to each vendor as if they were old friends, haggling with a smile and paying with coins she counted carefully. Then he saw her get on a bus, heading to the outskirts of the city. John got into his Cadillac and followed, keeping his distance. The bus stopped in a neighborhood John had never visited. Small concrete houses, unpaved streets, children playing soccer in vacant lots. Maria got off the bus and walked several blocks until she reached a small but well-kept house. It had a tiny garden full of medicinal plants and colorful flowers. It was her home. John sat in his car, observing. He felt like a voyeur, spying on a life he didn't understand. Maria opened the door and disappeared inside the house. A few minutes later, he saw her appear at the window, watering the plants in her garden. It was a completely different world from his. He lived in a mansion in Bel Air with a pool, gardens tended by professional gardeners and housekeepers who took care of everything. Maria lived in less than 500 square feet, but there was something about that small house that radiated more warmth than his entire mansion. He was about to start the car when he saw Maria come out of her house again. This time, she carried a basket and was heading towards the house next door. An older woman came out to greet her, and John could see she had difficulty walking. Maria helped her sit on a plastic chair and began to check her bandaged leg. For the next hour, John watched Maria visit 3 different houses on the same block. In each one, she seemed to be taking care of someone: an elderly man with respiratory problems, a pregnant woman, a child with a fever. She didn't charge anything, she just helped. When Maria finally returned to her house, John started the car and drove back to the hospital, his mind full of questions he didn't know how to ask. The next day, when Maria arrived at Leo's room, as usual, John was waiting for her with a strange expression. "Hello," Maria said, immediately noticing that something was different. "How was Leo this morning?" "Good, very good," John replied, without taking his eyes off her. "Maria, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What do you do in your free time?" Maria seemed confused by the question. "My free time? Well, I don't have much, but I tend my garden, I read when I can, I help some neighbors." "You help your neighbors?" "Yes, there are several older people on my block who need basic medical help. Since they can't afford a doctor, She stopped, as if suddenly realizing that perhaps she had said too much. "You what?" "I use what my grandmother taught me. Nothing serious, just basic things. Herbs for coughs, massages for pain, things like that." John sat down in the chair in front of her. "Maria, have you ever thought about studying medicine officially?" Maria laughed, but it wasn't a joyful laugh. "John, I work 12 hours a day cleaning floors to barely earn enough to eat. I don't have money for college, I don't have time, and besides," she shrugged, "people like me don't get to be doctors. People like you, poor, without formal education, without connections." John felt something strange in his chest. Was it indignation, sadness, protectiveness? What if there was a way? A way for what? For you to study, for you to become a doctor? Maria looked at him as if he had lost his mind. "John, that's impossible. I'm not like you." "No, you're not like me," John said, moving closer. "You're much better." Maria felt her cheeks flush. There was something in the way John looked at her that made her feel exposed, vulnerable. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "It's true. I've spent millions of dollars on doctors who couldn't help my son. You helped him without charging a dime. I live in a mansion, and sometimes I feel lonely enough to die. You live in a small house, but you have a whole community that loves you. John, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." The words came out before John could stop them. Maria stood still, her eyes wide. "What? About you? About how you take care of Leo? About how you take care of your neighbors? About how you smile when you think no one is watching you? About how your voice changes when you tell stories? About—" "Stop!" Maria stood up abruptly. "Stop right now." "Why?" "Because this can't happen." Maria walked to the window, turning her back to him. "Because you are you and I am me. Because when Leo gets better, you're going to go back to your world of mansions and housekeepers and important meetings, and I'm going to keep cleaning floors." John approached from behind, not touching her, but close enough for Maria to feel his presence. "What if I don't want to go back to that world without you?" Maria closed her eyes, feeling her heart beat so hard she was sure John could hear it. "You can't say those things to me." "Why not?" Because you make me believe in things that can't be." John slowly reached out and touched Maria's shoulder. She shivered, but didn't move away. "What things?" "That someone like you could really see me. Not as the cleaning lady who takes care of your son, but as a woman." John turned Maria around to face him. His blue eyes were full of an intensity she had never seen. "Maria Alvarez, I see you as the most extraordinary woman I have ever met in my life. John, I see you as someone who could teach me to be a better father, a better man. I see you as—" "Maria, Maria!" Leo's voice interrupted them. The boy had woken up and was calling for her. Maria quickly moved away from John, her cheeks red and her heart racing. "I'm coming, little warrior," she said, walking toward the bed with unsteady steps. "Are you okay?" Leo asked, looking at her with concern. "You look red." "I'm fine. Just a little warm." Leo looked at his father, then at Maria, and then back at his father again. "Is Daddy saying nice things to Maria?" John froze. His 2-year-old son had grasped something he himself was only just beginning to understand. "Why do you ask that, champ?" "Because sometimes, when you say nice things to people you like, they get red like Maria." Maria looked at John, who seemed just as surprised as she was by his son's perception. "Leo is right," John said softly. "I was saying nice things to Maria." "Do you like Maria, Daddy?" Leo's direct question floated in the air like a declaration that could not be ignored. John looked at Maria, who looked back at him with a mixture of hope and terror. "Yes, Leo, I like Maria. A lot." Maria felt her breath catch in her throat. No one had ever admitted to liking her so openly, especially not in front of other people. "I like Maria too," Leo said, smiling. "Does that mean she can stay with us forever?" "Leo," Maria began. "Why not?" the boy asked. "Maria takes care of both of us, and Daddy is happier when Maria is here." "Adults are more complicated than children, little warrior," Maria said softly. "Sometimes we can't stay, even if we want to." "But do you want to stay?" Maria looked at John, who was watching her intently, waiting for her answer. Maria hesitated. "It's not that simple, Leo." "Why not?" "Because your dad and I are very different." "Different how?" "He lives in a big house and I live in a small one. He has money and I don't. He went to college and I didn't. He's important and You're important too," Leo interrupted her. "You're important to me and to Daddy." John felt his 2-year-old son understood things better than many adults. "Leo is right, Maria. You are important." At that moment, the door opened and 2 people entered, causing the temperature in the room to drop several degrees. Edward Hamilton, John's older brother, dressed in an expensive suit and with an expression of disapproval. And next to him, Christine, the hospital administrator, with a fake smile and calculating eyes. "John," Edward said without greeting him. We need to talk. Edward, I'm with my son. Hello, young Mr. Hamilton, Christine said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And you must be the famous cleaning lady. Maria stood up immediately, feeling the hostility in the air. I'm Maria Alvarez. I work in hospital cleaning. Yes, we've heard a lot about you, Christine said, looking her up and down. It's quite unusual for cleaning staff to spend so much time with patients. Maria is helping Leo recover, John said, tensing up. Of course. Edward looked at Maria with disdain. Brother, can we talk in private? No. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. Edward looked at Maria again, clearly uncomfortable with her presence. All right. John, very disturbing rumors have reached my ears. Rumors about your relationship with this woman. What rumors? That you're confusing gratitude with something. More, that you've lost perspective. Maria felt as if she had been slapped. She headed towards the door. I'm going to let you talk in private. No, John said firmly. Stay. John, it's better if I told you to stay. Edward and Christine exchanged a meaningful look. John, Edward continued, I understand you're grateful to this woman for what she's done for Leo. But you have to be realistic. You belong to an important family. You have responsibilities, a reputation to maintain. And this woman is a cleaning lady, John. A cleaning lady. That woman has a name, John said in a dangerous voice. And that woman saved your nephew when the best doctors in the country couldn't. That doesn't change what she is, Christine interjected. Mr. Hamilton, you are one of our most important benefactors. Your family has donated millions to this hospital. We cannot allow inappropriate situations to affect that relationship. Maria felt humiliation burn inside her. Each word was like a slap, reminding her of her place in the world. You know what? Maria said in a trembling but firm voice. You're right. This is inappropriate. Maria, John began. No, John. They're right. I forgot my place. Your place is here with me, John said, moving closer to her. My place is cleaning floors. Maria headed for the door. That's what I am. A cleaning lady. Daddy! Leo cried from the bed. Don't let Maria go! Maria stopped at the door, her eyes filled with tears. Goodbye, little warrior. Be good for your dad. Maria, no. But Maria had already left the room, leaving behind the only place where she had felt valued, where she had felt seen, where for a moment she had believed she could be something more than a cleaning lady. John turned to his brother and Christine with a fury he had never felt before. Congratulations, he said in an icy voice. You just drove away the woman who saved my son. John, get a grip, Edward said. This is for your own good. Get out, John yelled. Get out right now. Brother, get out. Edward and Christine left the room, leaving John alone with Leo, who was crying uncontrollably. I want Maria. I want Maria. John hugged his son, feeling that he had lost something precious that he might never be able to recover. A week after the confrontation at the hospital, John found himself in his executive office on the 30th floor of a downtown Los Angeles skyscraper, looking out the window at the city, sprawling before him. He had everything any man could desire, a company valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, properties in 3 countries, luxury cars, and the respect of the business elite of California. But he felt emptier than ever. Leo had been discharged 3 days earlier. The doctors had declared him completely cured, calling it a medical miracle. But the boy hadn't stopped asking for Maria for a single day. Every night he cried for the story lady, and John didn't know what to tell him. Mr. Hamilton? His assistant, Patricia, entered the office. You have a call from Dr. Herrera. John picked up the phone without enthusiasm. Doctor? Mr. Hamilton, could you come to the hospital? There's something I need to show you. It's about Maria Alvarez. John's heart quickened. Is she okay? Did something happen to her? She's physically fine, but it's better if you come. It's important. 20 minutes later, John was at the hospital, following Dr. Herrera through hallways that now seemed cold and strange without Maria's presence. "What is it, doctor?" After Maria stopped coming, I became intrigued by the methods she had used with Leo. I decided to do some research on her. They stopped in front of the doctor's office. Herrera opened a folder full of documents. "Look at this," he said, showing him an old yellowed photograph. John looked at the photo and felt his breath catch. It was Maria, but younger, maybe 15 years old, dressed in a white coat, and holding a certificate. "What is this?" "It's from the archives of the Regional Hospital of Uruapan. Maria Alvarez didn't just learn traditional medicine from her grandmother, she also studied nursing." John took the photograph with trembling hands. "Nursing? She graduated with honors at 17. She was the youngest and brightest student of her generation. Look." He showed him another document. Her grades were extraordinary. The professors wrote that she had a natural talent for diagnosis they had never seen. "Then why is she working as a cleaning lady?" Dr. Herrera took out more documents. "Here's the answer. A year after graduating, Maria was accused of practicing medicine without a license. Apparently, she had been treating patients in her hometown using unconventional methods." John read the file with growing indignation. They accused her of healing people. The town doctor, Dr. Mendoza, felt threatened by her. Patients preferred to go to Maria because she had better results. Mendoza reported her to the medical board, claiming she was causing harm with her home remedies. What happened? Maria was brought to trial. Since she didn't have money for a lawyer, she defended herself. The judge acquitted her of all medical charges, but they suspended her from the practice of nursing for unorthodox methods. They permanently revoked her license. John felt a fury burning in his chest. They took away her license for being too good at her job. Exactly. And there's more. The doctor took out another paper. After the trial, Maria tried to get a job at hospitals in the region, but Dr. Mendoza had made sure to spread rumors about her. No one wanted to hire her. That's why she ended up working as a cleaning lady. Yes, it's the only thing she could get, but look at this. He showed him a different folder. "I've been investigating the cases Maria treated in her town. 17 patients that the doctors had given up on. Maria, cured them all." John looked at the medical records. Cases of cancer, autoimmune diseases, neurological problems, all cured. This is incredible. Maria Alvarez is not just a traditional healer, Mr. Hamilton. She's a medical genius. She combines ancestral knowledge with a clinical intuition that borders on the supernatural. "Why are you telling me this?" Dr. Herrera was silent for a moment. "Because after what happened last week, Maria hasn't returned to work. And because I believe you have the right to know who the woman who saved your son really is." "Where is she now?" "I don't know. She resigned 3 days ago. She left this." He handed him a letter written in Maria's careful handwriting. "Dear Dr. Herrera, thank you for allowing me to work here during these years. I have decided to return to my hometown. I don't belong in this world of hospitals and important people. I took care of Leo because I saw in him the child I once was. Now that he's well, my work here is done. I hope you find someone better for my position. Sincerely, Maria Alvarez." John crumpled the letter in fury. Her hometown, a small town in rural Mexico, about 4 hours from here. John was already walking towards the door. "Thank you, Doctor." "Mr. Hamilton," the doctor stopped him. "When you find her, you tell her that the medical board has changed a lot in recent years. Tell her that if she wanted to, I could help her get her license back. Her methods are no longer considered unorthodox. Now they're called integrative medicine, and it's the most advanced field." "I will," John said, although his mind was already planning how to convince Maria of something much more important than getting her license back. 2 hours later, John was driving his Cadillac along the winding roads of rural Mexico, with Leo asleep in the back seat. He hadn't told his son where they were going, only that it was an adventure. Arriving in the small town, he asked for Maria at the first store he found. "Maria Alvarez?" said the woman behind the counter. "Oh, yes, Doña Esperanza's granddaughter. She returned a few days ago. She's at her grandmother's house on Hidalgo Street." John followed the directions until he reached a small but beautiful house, surrounded by a lush garden full of medicinal plants. It was different from the house in Los Angeles, more rustic but equally well kept. He parked the car and woke Leo up. "Where are we, Daddy?" "We're going to find Maria." Leo's eyes lit up. "Really? Maria is here?" "I hope so, champ." They walked to the door. John knocked, his heart pounding. After a moment, the door opened. It was Maria, but different. She wore a simple white cotton dress embroidered with flowers. Her hair was loose and shone under the afternoon sun, and there was a serenity on her face that John had not seen before. "John," Maria said, surprised. What are you doing here?" "Maria!" Leo cried, running towards her. Maria automatically picked him up, and John could see tears in her eyes. "Little warrior, how are you?" "I missed you a lot. Daddy missed you too." Maria looked at John over Leo's head. "You shouldn't be here." "We need to talk," John said. "Please." Maria hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Come in." The house was small but beautiful. The walls were filled with hanging plants, and there was a sweet scent of medicinal herbs in the air. It was exactly the kind of place where John could imagine Maria feeling at peace. "Do you want tea?" Maria asked, clearly nervous. "Maria," John said softly, "I know the truth." Maria stood still. "What truth?" "I know you're a nurse. I know what they did to you. I know why you were working as a cleaning lady." Maria closed her eyes and sighed deeply. "How?" "Dr. Herrera investigated. He showed me your academic record, the cases you cured, everything." Maria sat down on a small chair with Leo on her lap. "And? And? Maria, you're a medical genius. Why didn't you ever tell me?" "What for?" Maria looked at him sadly. "So you would see me as someone who failed? So you would pity the nurse who lost her license? I would see you as the extraordinary woman you are. John, it doesn't matter what I am or what I was. Your brother was right. We come from different worlds. I don't care about my brother. You should care. And you should care about your reputation, your social standing, Leo's future. Leo's future is guaranteed as long as you are in his life." Maria looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" John approached and knelt down in front of her. "I mean, I love you, Maria Alvarez." Maria held her breath. Leo looked at his father with wide eyes. "Did you tell her you love her, Daddy?" "Yes, Leo. I love Maria." "And does Maria love you?" Both John and Maria looked at Leo, then at each other. Maria began to say, but couldn't finish the sentence. "Maria," John said, taking her hands, "during the last few weeks, you have taught me what it really means to care for someone. You have taught me to be a better father. You have taught me to see beauty in simple things. You have taught me that money can't buy what really matters. John, I love you for how you take care of my son. I love you for how you take care of your neighbors. I love you for your intelligence, for your compassion, for your strength. I love you for who you are, not for what you have or don't have." Maria had tears running down her cheeks. "You can't love me." "Why?" "Not because because you're what? Humble, generous, brilliant, beautiful. Because you have the biggest heart I've ever known. Because I'm poor, John. Because I don't have a formal education. Because people are going to say I'm a gold digger. People can say whatever they want. All that matters to me is what you say." Maria looked at Leo, who was watching them curiously. "What will you say when Leo goes to school and his classmates ask him why his dad married a cleaning lady?" I'll tell him that his dad fell in love with the most intelligent and brave woman in the world, John said without hesitation, and that he was lucky enough for her to love him too. I didn't say I loved you, Maria murmured. But do you? Maria closed her eyes, as if admitting the truth was physically painful. Yes, she whispered. I love you. I love you both. But that doesn't mean I can... You can what? Live in your world. Be part of your real life. John stood up and helped her. Up too, with Leo still in her arms. Maria, my real world is you. My real life is the one that started the day you met Leo. Everything else is just noise. Your family will never accept me. Then we'll create our own family. Maria looked him in the eyes, searching for any sign of doubt or indecision. She only found determination and love. Would you really do that? Leave everything for me? Maria, you saved the most important thing I have in this world, my son. But more than that, saved me. Before I met you, I just existed. Now I live. Leo, who had been listening to the entire conversation, spoke suddenly. Maria, does that mean you're going to be my mommy? Maria looked at the boy, then at John. Leo, I could never replace your mommy. I don't want you to replace her, Leo said with the surprising wisdom of a child. I want you to be my other mommy, the one who is here with me. Maria felt her heart overflow with love for this little boy who had transformed her life. If your daddy really wants me to be part of his family, I want you to, John said immediately, more than anything in the world. Then yes, Maria said, smiling through her tears, I want to be your family. Leo shouted with joy and hugged Maria tightly. John wrapped both of them in his arms, feeling that he had finally found what he had been searching for his whole life without knowing it. At that moment, in that small house in a rural town in Mexico, 3 people who had been broken in. Different ways became a family. 6 months later, life had changed in ways none of them could have imagined. Maria stood in the garden of the new Hope Medical Clinic, located in downtown Los Angeles. It wasn't as big as St. Jude's Hospital, but it was modern, well-equipped, and most importantly, it was hers. Well, technically it belonged to John, but he had insisted that Maria be the medical director after helping her regain her nursing license and supporting her to complete her medical studies through an accelerated program. Nervous? John appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her. Terrified, Maria admitted, leaning back against his chest. What if it doesn't work? What if people don't trust me? Maria, you already have a 3-week waiting list. People know you. They know what you can do. It was true. The news of the nurse who had cured the millionaire businessman's son had spread throughout the city. At first, Maria had feared that people would come only out of a curiosity, but she soon realized that they came because they truly needed help. Patients who traditional hospitals had given up on, people who couldn't afford expensive treatments, families looking for more humane and compassionate medicine. Maria treated them all, combining her traditional knowledge with modern medicine. Do you know what's most incredible? John said, kissing Maria's neck. That you've achieved this in just 6 months. Maria smiled, remembering the last few months. They hadn't been easy. John's family had reacted exactly as she had expected. Edward had threatened to disinherit John, business partners had expressed concerns, and the high society of Los Angeles had received the news with a mixture of scandal and curiosity. But John had remained firm. At a family dinner Maria would never forget, he had put an end to all objections once and for all. Listen to me carefully, John had said, with Maria by his side and Leo on his lap. This woman saved my son when you didn't even know he was sick. This woman taught me what true love means, and this woman is going to be my wife, whether you like it or not. Edward had tried to argue about the social consequences, but John had cut him off immediately. Edward, you have 3 divorces and 2 children who don't speak to you. Don't come giving me advice about family. Since then, the relationship with John's family had been tense but functional. Some, like his cousin Anna Marie, had ended up falling in love with Maria after really getting to know her. Others kept their distance, but at least they no longer actively interfered. "Mommy Maria! Daddy!" Leo's voice interrupted them. The boy ran towards them from the entrance of the clinic, followed by Sophia, the new nanny they had hired so Maria could work. "Sorry, Mrs. Hamilton," Sophia said, slightly out of breath. "He insisted on coming to find you." "Don't worry, Sophia," Maria picked up Leo. "What's wrong, little warrior?" "I want to see my clinic," Leo declared proudly. Maria and John exchanged a smile. Leo had adopted the clinic as his own from day one, insisting that he had helped build it because it was his illness that had brought his parents together. "Your clinic?" Maria asked, feigning surprise. "Yes, because if I hadn't gotten sick, you wouldn't have met Daddy, and Daddy wouldn't have loved you, and you wouldn't have gotten married, and you wouldn't have built the clinic. So it's my clinic too." A 3-year-old's logic was irrefutable. "You're right," John said, taking Leo in his arms. "It's your clinic too. Can we see inside?" Maria looked at her watch. There were still 2 hours before the official opening, but all the preparations had been completed. "Okay, but only for a little while." They entered the clinic together. It was exactly as Maria had dreamed. White walls with colorful murals painted by local artists, spacious rooms filled with natural light, and an indoor garden with medicinal plants that patients could see from the windows. "Look, Leo," Maria said, taking him to a special room. "This is the pediatric room." It was a magical room, designed especially for children. The walls were painted like an enchanted forest. There were storybooks on a low shelf and educational toys scattered throughout the room. "It's like the hospital, but pretty," Leo exclaimed. "Exactly. We wanted children not to be afraid of coming to the doctor." John watched Maria explain everything to Leo, feeling that familiar sense of pride and love that washed over him every time he saw his wife in her element. Yes, his wife. They had married 3 months earlier in a small and intimate ceremony in the rural town in Mexico, Maria's hometown. They had decided they wanted their wedding to be in the place where it had all begun, where Maria's grandmother had planted the seeds of wisdom that would eventually save Leo. The ceremony had been perfect. Maria had worn a simple white lace dress that had belonged to her grandmother, and John had cried seeing her walk towards him down the aisle of the small-town church. Leo had been the ring-bearer, taking his job with adorable seriousness. And when the priest had asked if anyone objected to the union, Leo had shouted, "I do," making the entire congregation laugh. "Daddy," Leo's voice brought him back to the present. "Yes, champ? Are you happy?" "Happier than I ever thought I could be." "And is Mommy Maria happy?" Maria approached and took John's hand. "Very happy, little warrior." "Good," Leo said with satisfaction, "because I like it when you are happy. It makes me happy too." At that moment, Sophia rushed into the room. "Excuse me, ma'am, but the journalists are arriving for the opening, and there are many people outside." Maria felt the nerves return. "Many people. Mrs. Hamilton, there's a line going around the block. Everyone wants to see the clinic." John squeezed Maria's hand. "Ready to change the world?" Maria took a deep breath. Looking around the clinic they had built together, thinking of all the patients they could help, all the families they could heal. Ready. 2 hours later, the clinic was full of people, reporters, doctors, curious patients, and many neighbors from the neighborhood who had come to support Maria. "Ladies and gentlemen," John said into the microphone, "it is my honor to present to you the Hope Clinic. But more than that, it is my honor to present to you the most extraordinary woman I know. My wife, Dr. Maria Alvarez de Hamilton." Maria approached the microphone with Leo in her arms. The crowd applauded warmly. "Thank you very much," Maria began, her voice clear and strong. "A year ago, I was a cleaning lady at St. Jude's Hospital. I had lost my medical license for using methods that doctors considered unorthodox. I thought I would never practice medicine again." The crowd listened in absolute silence. "But then I met a family that changed my life. A little boy who needed to be healed, and a father who was willing to trust a stranger because he loved his son more than his own pride." Maria looked at John, who watched her with adoration. "This clinic is not just mine. It belongs to all of us. It's for everyone who has ever felt invisible, for everyone who has been rejected for being different, for everyone who believes that medicine should be as much about the heart as it is about the mind." The applause was deafening. "Here, no one will be rejected for not having money. No one will be judged for their origin. No one will be ignored because others consider them unimportant. Because we are all important. We all deserve to be healed. We all deserve to be seen." Maria stepped down from the small platform and began to walk among the crowd, greeting each person, listening to their stories, doing what she knew best, connecting with people. John followed her with his gaze, feeling that familiar sense of awe. How had he been so lucky to find this extraordinary woman? "Daddy," Leo said, tugging on his sleeve, "is Mommy Maria gonna heal all these people?" "She's gonna try, champ." "Good, because Mommy Maria is the best at healing sad people." John looked at his son, surprised once again by his wisdom. "Sad people?" "Yes, like you were sad before you met Mommy Maria, and like I was sad when Mommy Mary went to heaven. Mommy Maria heals the sadness in our hearts." John felt tears in his eyes. His 3-year-old son had understood something that had taken him months to grasp. Maria didn't just heal bodies, she healed souls. Hours later, when the inauguration had ended and the last visitors had left, Maria, John, and Leo remained alone in the clinic. "Tired?" John asked, seeing Maria sitting in one of the chairs in the waiting room. "Exhausted but happy," Maria replied, smiling. "I think we started something special today." "I know we started something special," John said, sitting down beside her. "Just like the day I met you." Maria rested, her head on John's shoulder. "Do you know what's most incredible about all this? What? That a year ago, I thought my life was already decided. I thought I would always be invisible, that I would never have a family, that I would never be able to use my knowledge to help people. And now? Now I have a husband who loves me, a son who calls me mommy, and a clinic where I can help people in the way I always dreamed." "Do you know what's most incredible for me?" John asked. "What?" "That for years I thought success was measured in money and power, that I thought I already had everything I needed. And now I know I was completely wrong. Success is measured in love, and I am the most successful man in the world." Leo, who had fallen asleep in one of the small chairs in the pediatric room, murmured something in his dreams. "What did he say?" Maria asked. John leaned closer to hear better. "He said, 'My family.'" Maria felt her heart overflow with love. A year ago, she was a lonely woman working in a hospital where no one really saw her. Now she was part of a family, she had her own clinic, and she had found her purpose in life. "John," she said softly. "Yes, thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me, for loving me as I am, for believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself." John kissed her gently. "Thank you for teaching me what it really means to live." They sat in silence for a moment, with Leo sleeping nearby, surrounded by the dream they had built together. Outside, the city of Los Angeles continued its rhythm, but inside the Hope Clinic, a family had found their home. Maria thought of her grandmother, who had taught her that the true power of healing came from the heart. She thought of all the patients she had lost the opportunity to help during the years she worked as a cleaning lady. She thought of all the times she had felt her life had no purpose. And now, looking at John and Leo, she knew it had all been worth it. Every moment of pain, Every humiliation, every night of loneliness had been necessary to reach this moment, because sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the most painful endings, and sometimes the people who seem most different are exactly who we need to heal our broken hearts. At the Hope Clinic, under the soft lights of the Los Angeles twilight, 3 people who had been lost had found their way home, and tomorrow, when the doors opened again, they would help others find theirs, because that is what true love does. It not only heals those who experience it, but it multiplies and heals all those it touches. And in the years that followed, the Hope Clinic would become much more than a medical center. It would become a symbol that love can overcome any barrier, that hope can flourish in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the most ordinary people are the ones who can perform the most extraordinary miracles. Maria Alvarez, the cleaning lady who became a doctor, the humble woman who married a millionaire, the orphaned girl who found a family, never forgot where she came from. And that is why she never stopped seeing the humanity in every person who crossed the doors of her clinic. And John Hamilton, the businessman who had had everything except what really mattered, learned that true wealth is not counted in dollars, but in shared moments, in the laughter of a child, in the embrace of a wife, in the satisfaction of knowing that you are living a life that has meaning. And Leo, the boy who had been on the brink of death and found life through love, grew up knowing that families are formed not only by blood, but by choice, by love, by the daily decision to care for one another. This is the story of 3 hearts that found each other when they needed it most, and who together built something more beautiful than any of them could have imagined alone. It is the story that true love knows no barriers of class, money, or education. It is the story that sometimes the cure we are looking for comes in the most unexpected form. And it is the story that everyone, absolutely everyone, deserves to be seen, to be loved, and to be saved. 10 years later, the morning sun filtered through the large windows of the Hope Clinic, now a 3-building medical complex that had expanded across the entire block. Maria Alvarez de Hamilton, 40 years old, walked through the hallways of the main building in a white coat embroidered with her name and the title she had fought so hard to regain, Dr. Maria Alvarez de Hamilton, CEO. 10 years had passed since that first opening, and the clinic had transformed into something that surpassed even the most ambitious dreams Maria had ever had. What began as a small medical center was now internationally recognized as a model of integrative medicine, where ancestral knowledge was perfectly combined with the most advanced technology. "Good morning, Dr. Hamilton," greeted Esperanza, a 23-year-old nurse, who had been named in honor of Maria's grandmother. "Good morning, Esperanza. How are our morning patients doing?" "All stable. Mr. Martinez in room 3 asked specifically for you. He says he only trusts the doctor who heals with her hands and heart." Maria smiled. After 10 years, there were still patients who came from other countries just to be treated by her. Her reputation had grown in ways she had never imagined, but what made her most proud was that she had never lost that human connection that characterized her. "I'll see him in a moment, and the children from the foundation. They are in the therapeutic garden with Theo." Maria felt that familiar surge of maternal pride. Theo, now 13, had developed a passion for helping other children facing traumas similar to what he had experienced. Every Saturday morning, he led play therapy sessions for hospitalized children, using his own experience to connect with them in ways that adults sometimes couldn't. Maria walked towards the therapeutic garden, an addition to the complex that had been Theo's idea when he turned 10. It was an outdoor space filled with medicinal plants, where patients could participate in healing activities while connecting with nature. There was Theo, tall for his age, with his father's blonde, curly hair, but the compassionate eyes he had developed through his own experience of pain and healing. He was sitting in a circle with 5 children of different ages, telling them a story Maria immediately recognized. It was an adapted version of the tale she used to tell him about the boy who found his mommy. And then, Theo was saying with the same storyteller cadence Maria had used years ago, the boy realized that although his mommy couldn't be with him physically, her love continued to live in every act of kindness he did for others. A girl of about 8 raised her hand. Like when I help my little brother with his homework even though he's in the hospital? Exactly like that. Sophia, Theo replied, smiling. Every time you help someone, your love multiplies and reaches more people. Maria watched the scene with tears in her eyes. Her son had taken the lessons of pain and transformed them into a life mission. At 13, he already talked about studying medicine to follow in the footsteps of his mommy Maria, as he still called her. Am I interrupting anything important? Maria asked, approaching the group. Mommy Maria! The children shouted in unison. Even after all these years, the little patients called her that. It had become an honorary title that Maria wore with more pride than any diploma. We were talking about how love can heal sadness, Theo explained, standing up to hug Maria. Like you healed mine and Daddy's. And like you are healing these little warriors, Maria replied, using the term that had become traditional in the clinic to refer to child patients. At that moment, the familiar sound of a German engine was heard in the parking lot. John had arrived for the family lunch, a tradition they had religiously maintained over all these years, no matter how busy their schedules were. John Hamilton, now 52 years old, had changed significantly in the last decade. His real estate empire had grown, but now he focused mainly on social housing projects and community medical centers. The man who once only cared about profits now measured success by the social impact of his projects. There was grey hair at his temples, but his blue eyes shone with the same intensity as when he had met Maria. The difference was that now that intensity came not from business ambition, but from the deep love for his family and the satisfaction of a life with purpose. How are my 2 favorite doctors? John said, approaching the group. Daddy! Theo ran towards him. I was telling the kids about how love heals sadness. Ah, that's one of my favorite stories, John said, winking at Maria, especially because I lived it in person. The children laughed, accustomed to the displays of affection between the clinic's parents, as many had begun to call Maria and John. Kids, Maria said, let's let Theo have lunch with us. Can you continue your activities with Nurse Patricia? Yes, Dr. Hamilton, they replied in chorus. As the children headed towards the main building, Maria, John and Theo walked towards the small house they had built on the clinic grounds. It was their private refuge, a place where they could simply be a family after days full of medical and business responsibilities. The house was simple, but beautiful, decorated with the same taste for plants and warm colors that Maria had always had. It was completely different from the mansion in Bel Air, which they had sold 5 years earlier to finance the expansion of the clinic. How was your morning? John asked Maria as they sat down at the dining room table. Intense but rewarding. We had 3 successful surgeries and 2 medical discharges. And I received a call from Harvard University. John stopped chewing. Harvard. They want me to give a keynote lecture on integrative medicine next month. Apparently, our model is being studied by universities around the world. Theo looked at his parents with pride. Mommy Maria is going to be famous all over the world. She's already famous, champ, John said. At least in the world that really matters. Maria took John's hand across the table. After 10 years of marriage, she still felt that same electric connection from the first day. And how was your morning? We signed the contract for the medical complex in Oaxaca. It will be exactly like this one, but adapted to the needs of the indigenous communities in the region. That means we're going to help more people, Theo exclaimed. Exactly, John replied. Your mommy Maria is going to train the local doctors, and we'll make sure they have all the necessary resources. Maria felt that familiar sense of awe at how her life had evolved. What had started as a small clinic was now a model being replicated throughout Mexico and several countries in Latin America. There's something else, John said with a mysterious smile. I received a call from the president. Maria and Theo looked at him in surprise. The president of Mexico. He wants to appoint you ambassador of community health. It would be an official position to promote integrative medicine at a national level. Maria was speechless. When she was an orphaned girl in rural Mexico, she would never have imagined that one day the president of her country would recognize her for her work. What do you think? John asked. I think... Maria paused, thinking. I think my grandmother would be very proud. Are you going to accept? Theo asked. Only if it means we can help more people the way we help here. That's exactly the plan, John said. The government wants to establish clinics like ours in all the rural regions of the country. After lunch, while Theo returned to his activities with the children, Maria and John walked through the clinic gardens. It was their private time of day, when they could talk without the pressures of work. Do you ever regret anything? Maria asked suddenly. John looked at her, surprised. Regret? Regret what? Having left your previous life, the mansion, high society, the simplicity of only worrying about making money. John stopped and took Maria's hands in his. Maria, 10 years ago I was an empty man who confused financial success with happiness. I had everything money could buy, but I had nothing that really mattered. And now I have a wife who is admired internationally for her wisdom and compassion. I have a son who at 13 already has more purpose in life than I had during my first 40 years. I have a family that extends to hundreds of patients we consider part of us. Maria smiled, but John hadn't finished. But more than all that, now I wake up every morning knowing that my life has meaning. That every day I can use my resources to make a real difference in the world. How could I regret that? They were silent for a moment, watching the constant movement of doctors, nurses, patients and families that gave life to the clinic. You know what seems most incredible to me? Maria said. What? That all this started with a sick child and a cleaning lady who dared to offer help. Not just any cleaning lady, John corrected. An extraordinary woman who had been waiting her whole life for the opportunity to show the world what she was capable of. At that moment, a group of international medical students crossed the garden, following one of the resident doctors on a tour of the facilities. It was common to see delegations from other countries come to study the Hope model as it had been named by the international medical community. Dr. Hamilton, one of the students called out, recognizing her. Could we ask you a question? Maria nodded, always willing to teach. Is it true that you developed this model based on knowledge you learned from your grandmother? It's true, Maria replied. My grandmother taught me that the human body is wise and always tells us what it needs. Modern medicine gives us the tools to listen better, but ancestral wisdom teaches us how to interpret what we hear. And how did you manage to convince the traditional medical community to accept these methods? Maria looked at John before answering. I didn't have to convince anyone. I simply had to prove that it works. When the results speak for themselves, prejudices fade away. Any advice for young doctors who want to make a real difference? Never forget that before you are doctors, you are human beings. And before you treat diseases, treat people. Technology can help a lot, but human connection is still the most powerful medicine that exists. The students walked away, impressed and clearly inspired. John watched Maria with the same admiration he had felt the first day he saw her taking care of Leo. You know you're amazing, he said to her. I'm just a woman who was lucky enough to find her purpose in life. No, you're much more than that. You are living proof that no matter where you come from or what obstacles you face, if you have determination and a generous heart, you can change the world. As they walked back towards the clinic, Maria reflected on the path that had led her to this moment. She thought of the orphaned girl from rural Mexico who had lost her parents and had found refuge in her grandmother's knowledge. She thought of the young nurse who had lost her license for daring to challenge the medical establishment. She thought of the invisible cleaning lady who mopped floors while dreaming of being able to help heal people again. And now, looking at the medical complex that bore her name and philosophy, she knew that every moment of pain, every humiliation, every night of loneliness had been necessary to prepare her for this moment. "John," she said softly, "do you ever wonder what our life would be like if Leo hadn't gotten sick?" John stopped and looked at her. "Every day," he admitted, "and the answer is always the same. We would probably still be two strangers living incomplete lives. I would still be a successful but empty businessman, and you would still be an extraordinary woman waiting for the opportunity to shine. Sometimes I think it was fate. I'm sure it was fate, although I prefer to think it was something more than... that. What? I think it was love. The love you had kept in your heart needed to find a way out into the world. Leo was just the first recipient, but your love was so powerful that it couldn't be contained in just one person." Maria felt tears in her eyes. After 10 years, John still had the ability to surprise her with the depth of his understanding. "And your love? My love was dormant until you taught me how to wake it up. Now it multiplies every day I spend with you and Leo. Every time I see a patient heal, every time we open a new clinic." At that moment, Theo appeared running towards them from the main building. "Mommy Maria! Daddy, you have to come see this!" "What is it, champ?" John asked. "Little Sophia, the one who was in the therapy group this morning. She's walking." Maria and John looked at each other with emotion. Sophia had arrived at the clinic 3 months earlier with a spinal cord injury that had paralyzed her legs. Doctors at other hospitals had said she would never walk again. They rushed towards the main building, and indeed, in the pediatric hallway, Sophia was taking small, shaky steps, while her parents cried with joy and all the medical staff applauded. "Dr. Hamilton!" Sophia cried out when she saw her. I'm walking like in the story Theo tells!" Maria knelt down in front of the girl and hugged her gently. "I knew you could do it, little warrior." "How did you know?" "Because I saw the strength in your heart from the very first day. And strong hearts always find a way to heal." Sophia's parents approached with tears in their eyes. "Dr. Hamilton," said the father, "we have no words to thank you. You gave our daughter hope again when everyone else told us to give up." "I didn't do anything special," Maria replied. "I just believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself." That night, after Theo went to sleep and the clinic became quiet, Maria and John sat on the small balcony of their house, looking at the stars over Los Angeles. "Tomorrow I have to give the answer about the president's proposal," Maria said. "Have you decided?" "I think so. I'm going to accept, but with one condition." "Which one?" "That Theo can accompany me on some of the trips. I want him to see what life is like in other parts of the country, to understand that his purpose extends beyond these walls." "That sounds perfect. Besides, at 13, he's already ready to understand the magnitude of what we're building." Maria rested her head on John's shoulder. "Do you know what I'm going to teach him?" "What?" "That no matter how big all this gets, he should never forget that it all started with a simple question. What would you lose by trying?" John laughed softly. "That question changed our lives." "No," Maria corrected. "That question saved our lives." They remained silent for a long time, each lost in their own thoughts, but united in the certainty that they had built something more beautiful and lasting than either of them had ever dreamed possible. In the distance, the lights of the clinic remained on. There was always someone on duty. There was always some patient who needed care. There was always a story of pain transforming into hope. And at the center of it all, the philosophy that Maria had learned from her grandmother and that was now being taught in universities around the world. That the true power of healing comes from the heart. That every person deserves to be seen and valued. And that sometimes the greatest miracles come in the humblest packages. The Hope Clinic had begun as the dream of a cleaning lady. Now it was the reality for thousands of families who had found healing not only for their bodies, but for their souls. And this was just the beginning. Did this heartwarming story of love and overcoming adversity touch you? Do you believe in the power of true love to transform lives? Tell us in the comments what city you're watching from and what you found most inspiring about Maria and John's story. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart. Like this video. If you want us to create more content like this, comment your favorite part and tell us what city you're watching from. Suggest new ideas for future stories of love and overcoming adversity. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful journey of love, hope, and second chances.